Yeah, so good day. I just have this burden in my heart to talk about this child protection thing, especially in the Western world. Of course, those of us that were born and bred in Africa, we may not. I don't know. I can't speak about every country in Africa, but I'm speaking about Nigeria. Child protection is not like a serious issue. I don't think I've ever heard a situation where one is investigated for child protection. And that notwithstanding, now in Nigeria it's done, but then um, what will lead to child protection is a more serious thing as against the Western world. I have lived in the Western world at least for more than 10 years, and I also speak from a professional point of view. I'm a medical doctor, and I've been opportune to work in psychiatry. So I've been opportune to be in panels, in teams where decisions are made about either taking a child from a parent or not. And another point why it was laid in my heart just before I start studying, I want to talk about it. Another reason it's laid in my heart to do this is because I was a subject of child protection in the United Kingdom even without my knowledge. So, number one, as a woman or a man in the Western world, remember that taking care of your children is a priority added to whatever you do. I mean, provisions have been made. You for you for or for you to either get help. That's the minders. Either you get the minders or you work around your work to suit with managing your kids and your work. Neglect of any sort is detected, and then I will tell you what amounts to neglect. So if you are a parent, if you are a man or a woman, a parent with children in the Western world, and for example, in their schools, you are not known, no matter how busy you are. That is why I believe in merging my profession with my kids as around my children. So you enrolled your kids in school, but in school, no one has ever seen you. The staff in the school, no one has ever. So there's never a time you go to pick up your kids when it comes for, because abroad they do this what do you call it? This time. Once a while you have these parents visiting to get to know what their kids do in school. So in those opportunities, none of the parents are seen. It is always a minder. It is always a minder. Now, it might not amount to issues initially if there are not concerns, but when concerns arise, those things will become issues. Your kids get ill and you take them for appointment. They are being taken for appointments in hospitals, in GP this thing, surgeries, and no time has the parents been the one bringing those children. Those things will count by the time the child protection issues gets up. How are your kids? I mean health wise, physically, how are those children? You understand? But in the Western world, there are things the Western world do because of course their own culture is different from the African culture. In the African culture, you have some things you do, like the African culture believe in beating children to correct them. In the Western world, sometimes they see it as child abuse. So sometimes when you are beating your kids, they are taught in school to call 911 and declare that they are being abused or other. But in the African culture, it's not an abuse to correct your child by hitting, by spanking your child. But in the Western world, it could be. If, for example, I am not against beating your kids if that's what you believe in, I believe personally, even from my professional point, I was raised in Nigeria, remember. So I was raised in that culture of beating to correct as well. But I grew up, maybe because of my profession as well, I understood that having a good relationship with your children is priority. There are other measures you could use to discipline a child without actually hitting the child. One other thing I've realized from one of my siblings is sometimes it gives a negative feedback. So the reason most parents hit spank their children is to correct them, to make them understand and correct them. But sometimes, because you are always spanking the child gets used to what the worst that will happen is mommy will spank me, daddy will spank me. And that spank, they get used to it, and then the vice you want them to correct is not going to be corrected. So you see where I'm coming from. My own experience, there are so many measures you could use to punish a child without actually beating the child. Those I have explored in my relationship with children generally. I do that and I see a positive feedback from it. I'm not still ruling out completely um spanking, because sometimes it is that spanking that will correct a child. But even if you are the spanking parent, if you are the type that spank your children, always remember, if you spank the child, always remember to show love to that child, just so that have an opportunity to call that child back and try to readdress that issue, making the child understand that I spanked you because I didn't like this act you did and I want you to correct this and stop misbehaving this way. Does it make sense? So these are issues that will be raised in child protection. Some of us that were raised in Africa, we tend to now raise our kids the way we were raised. So when you hit your child to the point that there are marks on that child. Honestly, I'll be very honest now. Honestly, I don't think that is appropriate. There are ways to spank a child, but you mustn't spank a child in a way that the child will need to visit the hospital. These are kind of things we experience in Africa. So that aspect I do not support. I do not support, if you are going to spank your child to the point that your child needs to be admitted in the hospital. There are ways to spank a child and spank appropriately. So the child feels the pain of the spank and cries about it, but then not like to the point of inflicting injuries on those children. So if these are things that will arise when child protection comes up, these are things to look out for. Are there marks, like be marks evidencing that, as evidence that serves as evidence that this child is being abused? If your child does not look healthy physically, so your child looks malnourished, it will add to it. If, for example, these appointments I talk about, you have never been seen, I don't mean you must always attend all appointments. It might not suit you to always attend all appointments because of your commitment, maybe your professional commitment. But then that doesn't mean you will not surface in any of the appointments of your children. That doesn't mean in the schools of your children you are not known at all. You have never gone to their school, maybe to pick them once a while. It mustn't be something that is so often. But even those that work, there are times you are off work, there are times you are on leave or something like that. Those times, utilize it and make yourself, because these are things they will look out for. Remember, child protection comes when there are concerns. So if there are no concerns, fine. If they become concerned and social services are called in, these are the things they start looking out for. You understand? So the only way you can challenge, and that's why in this Western world, some of the blacks, the government of the country has taken their children. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. If you are a careful parent, if you are a dedicated parent, if you're a parent that understands what raising kids are, those things should not be called for. And if you raise your kids appropriately, and then with prayers added to it, like I believe in the spiritual aspect of a child, maybe because I'm a Christian and I know what's as in knowing the spiritual thing has done in my life personally. I believe in getting a child to know God. So if you're a parent that is a Christian as well, so you attend, for example, these fellowships, go with your children. Go with those children. If you're the one, even if you do, thank God that these days these online fellowships has come up a lot. So it makes it even more possible for you to inculcate your children into those things than before. Initially, what some parents complain about is how will I some financial constraints having to transport those children to the places of fellowship. So okay, now that this online has come, even if it is online, try to, if you're attending fellowships online, listening to the word of God, listening to messages, and try to make your kids, and let me tell you, yes, you play your own parts, but also there's a part that the Holy Spirit plays in the life of your child if you expose them early to the teachings of the scriptures, to what God says and all that. There's a part that role will play in them. So in this Western culture, for example, when they are told, if your mom spanks you, call 911, By the time you introduce your child, as in make your child know God quite early in life, you find out that that's 911, that's the child becomes conscientious. When I mean by living conscience, I mean a conscience that has been has been like scrutinized by the Holy Spirit himself, and that's what you need. By the time your child gets to the level of secondary school, where they are given where they're giving what was it called, the condoms. That's what I heard they do. I none of my kids had gotten to secondary school, but I heard that in secondary schools that they give this condoms, barrier methods, and they teach them how to prevent pregnancy. Now, I will always speak from a professional point of view, and I'll speak from a Christian point of view. Honestly, I will not want my child. I will teach my child like sexuality, but I will not encourage my child to to engage in sexual relationship and then use barrier method. I know in medicine, they will say, okay, even if you want to, make sure you protect yourself and all that. I will not. So by the time you make your child understand the dangers of such life of fornication and all that quite early, you teach that child quite early the dangers of this thing. The child will grow. Like I said, the child will get to the point of having a living conscience. When I say living conscience, I mean conscience that the Holy Spirit has touched. So when he or she goes to school, and that option of giving condom and all those things, that they could have sex and all that, your child remembers what she or he has learned from home and will not tread that path. So my way of saying, the society, the child protection thing is a plus on it, but I don't think if you are a responsible parent, if you're a responsible father, if you're a responsible mother, that you can never be faulted on child protection. When I heard after the child protection has been done, because some of my minders I heard went to the school of my daughters and told the staff there that I was mad, that I always scold my children. I scold. I scold. If they are wrong, I scold. You understand? But scolding is not bad. Scolding is a way of correcting a child. You understand? I could scold, but the way she framed it, she said I beat them a lot, and in my nature, I said till tomorrow, those that know me well, I do not beat kids easily. I'm just telling you why. I see the negative impact in the long run. The reason most parents hit or spank is for you to be corrected, but most times it doesn't work. I find it more productive when I engage in a conversation with that child and make the child understand why this thing is wrong. At least at the first instance, I could scold and then sit you down to speak to you about the reason why I had to scold you. But spanking inflicts pain. So sometimes that pain brings a negative effect. That's what I have observed. And based on that, I honestly do not believe in the principle of hitting kids to correct them. But even if you believe in that principle, remember, hit appropriately. That's number one. And then the second thing is, if you remember to get that child to speak to that child on the reason why you had to do this. Because if you don't, the impact, if you later get the child to understand, the child reestablishes love for you. It's a better thing than making a child revolt against you. So these are things that will count for your for child protection when they start looking out for that child protection. Because most times they do it secretly. They'll start looking out for Does she, at a time in my case, they wanted to raise so many. There's this shoe I saw. My kids always destroy Kayla and Kendra, really. Kayla particularly, not even Kayla and Kendra. Kayla particularly, she was always destroying most shoes I bought for her. So there was this shoe I saw. The sole was a bit firmer than the usual standard sole. So I bought that for her. And then when I went to school, I found out that she came back with another shoes. I'm a very careful parent. Very, 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 very careful mom. When she came back, I realized one of the days I was around that she came back with a shoe that was not hers, and I asked why. So I wrote in her book that Kayla came back with this shoe. I don't know why, and there is no problem with her shoe. Did anything happen? Then one of the staff said that the shoe is not appropriate, that the sole is so firm and all that, that it could inflict pain on her. I said it's not inflicting pain. I checked if you are size. When shoes inflict pain if they are tight on you. If they're not tight on you, they're not going to inflict pain. So they didn't just like. And then there was a time as well that I realized she was worn pant, and I said no, I didn't want that. So I think they didn't like what I said, probably. And that, the way you may get offended because someone, and of course a black someone, corrected you on something that, yeah. But I was still not scared. Maybe my profession has taught me what I know is right for child protection and wrong for child protection. When my second daughter Kendra fell from upstairs to go, I took her to A&E. The doctor there had to refer us to social services. So my point is that when these things happen, they refer to social services because it's kind of a dangerous thing that would have claimed her life, is it not? Because she fell to a concrete floor from a first story building. So it's very dangerous. I could claim her life. But I tell you something, you are only scared when you are subject to social services, when you are subject to child protection issues. You are only scared if you mustn't be a stay-home mom. It's not true. You can be going to work and coming back. I speak from a point of profession, as in professionally. You can go to work and come back. Once you have someone you made to do that, as in you have a minder, an accountable, a reputable minder. You understand? That is why if you also notice that your minder is not optimal in the function she should do, it is also your duty to change her or him. So once you have an appropriate minder, you can still go to work and come. You mustn't be a stay-home mom. You understand? So it is all based on your principle. Personally, if my kids are quite young, before their first birthday, I don't take them anywhere. So even with my profession, I will go for a 1 year leave post delivery because of the kids, except I have capable hands, as in I'm very sure that this minder is very capable of taking care of this child. That's the only reason why I will start working regular work with a child of that age. Even taking my kids to crèche, I do not do it until they're up to 1. I have my reasons, but this is personal to me. Having said that doesn't mean if your child is 6 months, you cannot go and work. If your child is 3 months, you cannot go and work. Once you have a capable hand, what you don't want is raising social child when there is child protection issue around your child. You understand? So even if you go to work and come back, no matter how tight and busy your schedule is, remember that the responsibility of those children lie on you majorly, even if you have a minder. You still have to be sure things are done appropriately. You don't just leave, because by the time child protection comes in, someone may bribe that this minder, and that minder says even things that are false. You understand? So child protection, whether you cook for the child or you don't cook for the child, but the point is the child is healthy physically, so the child is feeding appropriately. That's what child protection will check. Do you understand? So these are things. These are things. I just don't know. It was very strong in my heart to just make this video of this child protection thing, because a lot of women fear when you come abroad. There is a lot of fear, and then if your child, if you have your children and none is up to 18 years, ideally by law, you're not supposed to leave them alone without an adult. But you could agree with me that a lot of, especially the blacks, that have trained their children well, even at 14, 15, if the eldest is up to this age, somehow they leave them at home and work. You understand? But then before then they would have organized everything, instructed that eldest. I'm not saying it's correct. I'm not saying it's correct. But once there are no issues coming out from there, nothing is going to happen. The problem is when there becomes concerns. You get, when there becomes concerns, by law, you shouldn't leave those below 18 years without an adult. So an adult must be present by law. I'm talking about legally. So if something happens and the social services get to know that you leave these children without an adult, it will be against you in child protection. That's part of why those kids will be taken from you. Now, regarding health of the mother, once a woman does not have mental derangement, the only reason a child will be taken from a mother, even I even got to know that even in Nigeria, that it is still the law. Minors, at the point of divorce, minors stay with the mom. Minors should stay with mothers. So it is even standard. The only reason why a minor cannot stay with a mom is if she has mental derangement, and it makes sense. Because I started by saying that I've an opportunity to work in psychiatry, and I've been in teams where decisions are made whether this woman that is diagnosed of mental illness can stay with. It's not even all mental illness. It's not even all mental illness condition. There are some that they will tell you that the woman can stay with the child, but she needs support. She needs like someone else that is not. You understand? So there are mental conditions where the woman is not aggressive. She's not a harm to her children. You understand? So if she's not managing optimally because of her mental health, she's not managing circumstances around the children optimally, she could be supported, not the kids taken from her. So the kids are only taken from her if there are risks, if there are evidences that she's a risk to them. Risks in the sense that if, for example, the woman is aggressive, so she's aggressive, and she could hit them without her knowledge and all that. Do you understand? Those are conditions where you take children from. You understand? So don't let yourself be a victim in this. I thank God that's why in my nature I like to be grounded in so many things. I like to acquire, as I am, as in just be grounded, very very grounded in a lot of things. This child protection, of course, I had to know in my natural instinct. I was raised. I am always say this, and I was raised. I was not just born and dropped to grow. I was raised. By this I mean there was impact of my parents in me. So because of that, I grew. That's what I'm saying. You can't give what you don't have. I grew believing that kids should be raised. So you don't just give birth to children and let them go to school. Whatever they tell them in school, they do. So you as the person that brought them to the world has your own responsibility towards them. Because I was raised, I believe in raising children. In my nature, I do the do's for the kids. You understand? Even when I'm combining it with my career, when I worked, what I usually do is I will cook soup and stew because I trained my children with Nigerian food. I'll cook soup and stew and freeze. Then even if I'm not able to cook regularly, if I have a minder, some minders I have don't cook the kind of food they eat. So if I have minders that at least you can boil rice. If you can't boil, I'll teach you how to boil rice. I'll teach you how to boil spaghetti. I'll teach you how to boil yam. You can use those stew and eat it. Any other time I'm off work, I'll do those cooking and repack. You can have a way around those things and combine and still live healthy life. Happy with your children's progress, happy with your own progress. So and then not becoming a prey for the government of the country. You understand? My problem is when there becomes friction between the husband and the wife, because that's what actually costs majority of my own problem. I know I was raised, so in my nature, I have this natural instinct of raising kids. Kids should be raised. They shouldn't just be born and left to grow anywhere, any way they choose to grow. Okay, so once you do these things, you find out that you are protecting yourself even without your knowledge. When this social services thing is called up, when child protection comes up, by the time they look through these factors I'm telling you, and you are ticking good in, as in right in most of them, you are unlikely to fail child protection. And if you don't fail child protection, your children will still not, those children will still not be taken from you. And mind you, when children are taken from you, they are going to be fostered. And I tell you something about fostering. At least I've heard someone who is a Nigerian whose kids were fostered. Her kids were not fostered because she failed child protection. Her kids were fostered because she was illegal in the country. Now, because she gave birth to those children in this country, the kids can reside, but their mom cannot reside because she doesn't have her immigration status should not let her reside. So these children were so the woman, when I don't know, the immigration got her, so she was imprisoned by the place, and because she was imprisoned, her kids were fostered. The story she told me her kids told her about that fostering is very ugly. It's not a palatable experience. So don't be afraid of social services. I'm speaking even from the professional point of view. When I later heard that child protection, as I said, me, if the United Kingdom finds me guilty when it comes to child protection, then they have a problem. Just like I told the ST2 trainee that assessed me and said I have psychiatric illness. I said, your assessment should be checked. It is you, General Medical Council, should be looking at, not me. So the bottom line of what I'm saying is, you don't need to be scared if you're doing the correct thing. Once you are doing the correct thing, even when something happens and social services are called in and child protection issue is raised, once they check those things and you are not found wanting in any of them, the social services cannot take your children from you. Yeah? Okay, thank you.